Start
Sorry,
when
Rick, before we
record them?
start, do we have any vegetarians in the room?
Oh, yeah.
One. Yeah, I know you, Jack. Cool, thanks. Sorry, Rick.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to another OWASP Sydney night. Today we have actually two very special sort of presentations. One is a short announcement from Michael, who is a PhD candidate at Macquarie University. He's doing pretty good research about authentication and identity management. I think what he's researching is the future of authentication. And I reckon it's very important for all of us to get involved now, not as much as we can, because this is where it's heading. Without much ado, Michael, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Kankowski. As was mentioned, I'm a PhD student at Macquarie University at Cyber Hub, and we are doing a lot of cybersecurity research. And my focus is on authentication. And currently, I'm doing the FIDO2 research on the FIDO2 protocol, which is this. Maybe you have heard the 2FA and passwordless way to authenticate. Recently, for all the big companies mentioned that they are going to implement something called passkey, which is FIDO plus synchronizable credentials. And I can talk about this more, but I think that we scheduled something for later. But today I just wanted to mention you that I'm conducting a survey how the FIDO is viewed in the enterprise. So if you can spend like 5 minutes to fill it, you don't need to be an expert in FIDO. It's basically how FIDO can be implemented in the industry. So yeah, so if you want to help PhD students to graduate, then please spend 5 minutes to fill it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. So yeah, let's start. I know that usually I wouldn't say to do that, but that's a trustworthy one, I hope. So yeah,
it was checked. I think you checked, right?
I did check. I did it myself, and I haven't lost anything yet, so I'm okay.
Yeah, it's Google Forms.
So yeah, no, definitely. I think this is pretty good. I forgot to mention, but Michael is gonna do a presentation for us in November, and he's gonna go on the whole FIDO passwordless stuff. I'm really looking forward to that presentation. It's gonna be really, really good. Okay, now to the main event of the evening. We got one of our own doing a presentation, Riki Blok. He's gonna be talking about how we can abuse recruiters. So let's pay true attention, because if you use your recruiters right, you can make a lot of money. So it's good for us, you know. At the end of the presentation, we're gonna cut the streaming, so we have a little bit of Chatterhouse through discussion in here. For those online, feel free to put your questions in Discord, and we will reply via text. All right. Okay. Without much ado, give you the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess some ground rules. I think most of you guys have been here before. If you haven't, toilets are outside the main door. Go through to your left if you need to, basically. A bit of backstory. The idea for this presentation actually came off the back of one of the OWASP meetups that we did previously, where I had somebody quite senior from industry speaking with me about what recruiters do. So I thought, hey, maybe it's an idea to do a presentation about what that does. So if at any point you've got questions, feel free to yell. All right. hopefully my clicker works. All right. So a bit of background about me. I've been in recruitment since 2013. Originally recruited in infrastructure for about 4 years, 5 years, and then did a bit of software development and started recruiting in cyber 2015, 2016. And then enjoyed it a lot and slowly did more and more of it. So I guess similar to a lot of people who get into security, you start doing something else and then kind of edge your way more and more towards security. So that was certainly my backstory. One of the things I'll highlight here, I don't know how effective it is, but probably that bottom one there, try not to be like a regular salesy sort of recruiter that everybody's spoken to in the past. Try to be genuine, and I try not to be a dick. So whether that's effective is debatable sometimes, but anyway. Okay, so why do I recruit in security? So there's an old saying that, security is hard, good security is hard. Security recruitment's hard. I actually find it much more difficult than the other spaces I used to recruit in. And for some reason, I like that. Really enjoy the challenge of it. I find it far more interesting too. If I don't know how many software developers I've placed. No offense if anyone in here is a software developer by trade. Don't mean to offend you. But listening to people talk about crafting software versus listening to somebody talk about protecting an environment, I find that far more interesting. I find the people more genuine too. So, these types of events, I've been involved with these guys running these for a few months, and there's a real community feel to it. I never got that with any of the other spaces that I recruited in. And I hope that isn't somebody trying to get up. Yeah. Yeah. Downstairs now, yeah. All right. So a bit of insights about the market at the moment, and I guess what I've seen. So the market's busy. I'm sure that anybody in the industry is getting peppered a lot by messages. It's a good time to take advantage of that. If you are looking to change roles, there's probably more opportunities than there would have been a year ago. So be conscious of that. I've seen a huge amount of change around salaries for those mid-level roles. So anybody at that really senior end of the market, I haven't seen a massive shift in pays, but that kind of mid-level. So somebody who's a couple of year analyst or engineer or a pen tester, your pay is probably $20,000 or $30,000 more than it was pre-COVID. It's a massive acceleration at that level, and still a significant gap in entry-level roles, which I'm sure everyone knows. And there's people in here who are trying to get in, right? And there's just no entry-level roles. So that still hasn't changed. It feels like everybody talks about that. Hopefully something happens where that shifts in the next little bit. So I just actually saw something I missed off my slides here. Something that probably has driven quite a lot of the uplift in security roles in the last couple of years. There's an act that came into play at the end of last year, which is the SOFI Act, or the Critical Infrastructure Act, which came into play, which meant any company that was a stakeholder involved with critical infrastructure, so it could be a software company that provides software to the port industry, they had to have a level of security that they wouldn't have had before. So saw a huge amount of kind of GRC related work at the back end of last year, driven by that. And now we're seeing a lot more kind of engineering and analyst work, probably for companies building that capability in-house. So. All right. So if you're looking to get into security, a couple of little pointers here, stuff that I guess can make you stand out. It sounds a weird thing, like practice your skills, improve, study, like basics. Find what you like, and you won't be able to do that without trying. You won't work out if you want to be a pen tester without playing around with Hack the Box or something similar, or you won't know if you like being an analyst unless you do some of the work to see if you like that. So find what you're interested in, and then hone in on that. Network at events. These events are perfect. If you're entry level, so there's actually a bit of a segue in the next part about this, but if you're at an event like this, speak to as many people as you can. Everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to help juniors out in the industry. And you're far more likely, in my opinion, to find that role yourself than you will through an agency. So I've been recruiting close enough to 10 years. Entry-level roles in any discipline, I've probably placed less than 5. And for context, I've probably put 2 to 3 people into a role every month on average. So you work backwards from that, it's a very, very small percentage. Entry-level security roles, I think I've placed 1 ever. So just bear that in mind, that there is a real shortage of those roles. And in some ways, if you're trying to get into the industry, your own network, leveraging people that you can connect with in person or on LinkedIn, you might find you get a better result from that. Putting a CV into a portal or relying on an agency, it's probably not going to bear the fruit. So to further that point, and there's a link to this if anybody wants it. So this is a friend of mine who runs a company called SizoLens. You can omit that from the recording if you need to, Rick. They're a company that have a whole heap of industry CISOs. So probably 60 or 70 of the top 100 CISOs, members of their community. And he put a post out there talking about people wanting to break into security and how there was no way for them in and all this sort of stuff, right? Now, he had about 60 people comment on his post, and he was saying directly to approach CISOs and so forth yourself, because you'll probably get a better result. The people who commented on that were CISOs, saying if somebody ever messaged me about a role at my company, I would talk to them. So I guess the point to take from that, if you're trying to break in, use your initiative, connect with as many people as you can, ask for help, ask for people from industry, ask for advice from people like me. Good recruiters will still give you advice. They may not be able to get you into a role, but somebody who's like actually involved and wants to help out, I'll always help. If somebody can get me on the phone, I'll always try to help out. So that would be some advice on that point. Any questions before I move on? No? Cool. Okay. So a basic example of recruitment to kind of break it down into the simplest form. Company is hiring. They have a HR function, or maybe they don't. Between their HR function who've advertised the role and the existing staff who work there, they can't find the person they want. So they engage us to find that person, and there's a commercial agreement in place for us to find them, right? Not rocket science, simplistic. Now, I know what you're thinking. It was the same thing I thought before I did recruitment. How is that a job? How do you get paid to do it? It doesn't seem like it should be a commercial thing, or that should exist. So I'll try to give some context around why that is the case, and I guess some of the challenges that exist from our industry. One of the things I'd highlight from a talent acquisition or a HR management perspective, somebody who works internally, recruitment's probably a tenth of what they do, right? So they've got all the other HR piece that they do. And from a discipline like security, they might recruit 1 security person per year. How well are they going to be articulating that role to the prospective person looking for the role? How well are they going to know how to advertise that role or how to sell that role to people? Probably not very well, is the thing I would say. So somebody like myself, I only recruit security people. I know the lingo. I know how to write advertisements so people want to apply. I know how to use my LinkedIn messaging, all of those sorts of things. So just be conscious of that. That's, I guess, part of the reason why we exist. The next slide I'll probably play for a second if it goes. I don't know if it's going to play sound. May not. Let's see. Doesn't want to have sound. I really only included this slide to prove how long I've been doing recruitment for. So this is a slide training video put together in the 80s of the old school ways of recruitment. And it talks to there being about 30 different individual steps that you do for every single role that you work on. Now, it's like the Bible for anybody that works in recruitment. That's like what you fall back on for like your fundamentals of doing everything properly. So anyway, all right. I'm going to take you through a role that I worked on last year. I'll show you the job description, and I'll give you all a couple of minutes to have a bit of a read through this job description. All right. And then I'll go through, I'll give you 2 minutes. So some of you guys and girls in the room may not have seen a whole heap of job descriptions. I guess what I'm interested to know after you've had a bit of a read, and if anybody wants to be brave to say what sort of role they think it is, I'd be quite interested. So this was sent to me by an internal HR team. And I guess some of the stuff that stood out to me when I was looking through it, I was like, all right, we've got analysis work. Okay, could be an analyst role. Coordinate security events. Incident response, could be an analyst, senior analyst. Malware analysis and forensics, again, could be an analyst. Go through to the next bit. Participate in security audits, okay, could be GRC. Some SIEM operations, again, could be analyst, could be engineer, depending on the context of that.
Could be a SOC guy.
Could be a SOC guy. Yeah. And then detailed understanding of Azure, scripting, development languages, okay, so that DevSecOpsy, whatever that is, business to business, and quite a bit of talk about SOAR, Sentinel, Microsoft Security Suite. Anybody want to take a stab at what the role is based on that? SOC analyst? SOC engineer? SOC analyst. Yeah. All right. All right, we'll remember that. Okay, so my process, I'll get the job spec, I'll set up a time to speak to a manager, and I'll generally spend about 30 minutes talking to them about the ins and outs of the role, what it means to work there, and get a good understanding of what they're looking for outside of a job description. Because to be honest, I don't read job descriptions. I more speak to a manager about what they actually want. If I don't get a briefing, I won't work on the role. Simple as that. If I've got two roles that come up at the same time, there's a possibility to work on. One client will work with me exclusively. The other one won't. You can tell where I'd prioritize my time. So I'll always work on client that's going to give me the most engagement, which generally means they work with me exclusive. Also, it means I don't need to race. So, I'll give you an example. I sat on a briefing last year. There was 5 other agencies on the briefing. How much effort do you put into that? Like, if you know someone, you send them. If you don't, you probably won't work on it. Something that I'll talk to here as well, which is relevant when you see the next slide. So that job description was a HR written job description. No context around what the role was, around what they're actually looking for. And they would have advertised that role based on the job description. All right. So here's the actual briefing notes from that specific job. So this particular company used to use a security vendor or a managed service provider, and they outsourced all of the security to that company. And they're in the process of bringing all of that work back in-house. So the CISO was doing all the technical work. He was doing engineering work. He was doing analyst work. He was getting alerts all hours of the day. Now, what was very interesting when I spoke with him, what they were actually looking for was a Splunk SME. Now, I'll just flick back and I don't know, Splunk's not on there, right? So I feel like... So, and a point that I'll raise on this, if you're looking for a role and you ask somebody to send you a job description, just be conscious that you might get that when what they really want is this, right? So the context was as a CISO, really strong forensics background. They had implemented Splunk, but it was noisy. So they needed an engineer who could come in and really tune up the installation. Nothing to do with analyst work at all. So yeah, I guess something to think about there if you are looking at a JD to get context if a role suits you. I'd probably, if I was, I'll talk to this after, but if I was in your shoes and somebody approached you about a role, maybe get more context than just the job spec would be the point. So basic process, I've done my briefing. I'll do a couple of things here. I'll think about roles I've worked on previously. First and foremost, have I met a Splunk engineer? Do I know somebody who's an SME level for that? I'll speak to them before I do anything else because I've already met them, already know that they're right. I'll advertise the role. Some agencies don't, some agencies do. Look, the jury's out whether it works, but we got to cover the market. If I place somebody off an ad on Seek, then why wouldn't you do it? Would be the argument I'd make. I'll do a LinkedIn search. So I'll build a search based on the briefing. I'll put all my parameters in there and build out the list of candidates that could suit that. And then I'll approach them. And then we've got a database internally that we use. And also there's a thing that Seek has for recruitment agencies, which is their database. So I could go onto Seek's database. If you've ever put your CV on there, it's probably still there and I can download it. So if you ever get cold called off a recruiter, they've probably got it from AppSource. Just FYI. Cool. Why is it important for you to know that? So if you're looking for a role, I need to know how to find you. So the idea of how I find you is probably pretty important. So key things with that would be spelling of acronyms. So if you're a SIEM engineer, spell it right, SIEM, not SEIM. If you're good at Splunk, you got to spell Splunk right. Or if you use Azure, you got to spell Azure right. Like really basic things. Why that's important as well. People who aren't specialist agency recruiters or work in internal talent teams, they might have automated searches set up where it parses a CV. And if those keywords aren't on there, they don't even see it. So you've got to be really conscious about that. That's probably all I'd say on that. Any questions on that just before I move on? We're good?
I imagine that would be the reason why there seems to be two general thoughts about whether you should send your resume in to every job offer or kind of pick, a few specifics.
Yeah.
There seems to be two separate camps.
Well, so the problem would be, and it depends on your seniority of role. So to give you some context, if I was to advertise a junior security analyst role, like 1 to 2 year person, I might get 50 or 60 applicants, right? If I was to advertise a senior analyst role, I'd probably get 2 or 3. If I was to advertise a grad role, probably 200 to 300. Now, I'm a specialist recruiter. I review CVs. I speak to people all the time that do that role. If you're an internal HR or talent, you probably don't. So you've got to go through 200 or 300 resumes and you don't even know what you're looking for. I don't know. There's not a definitive answer on that about the best way to get around it, right? But if you're trying to break into the industry, I'd apply for everything. Not going to hurt you. Just don't expect that you're going to get a massive callback rate. So, yeah.
When you search LinkedIn for these keywords, does the frequency of them being mentioned matter, or if it's just
no,
once?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. So the way that LinkedIn search will pull up. So say say a software developer has used Splunk for monitoring, not for security. If I just put Splunk in, they'll come up. So I'll tend to work the most complex search I can. So for that role, it'd be like Splunk correlation rules, a bunch of other key things that would be suitable for that. I'd see what comes up and then I'd pair back. If no one came up, I'd pair back until I could find the right combination.
In what order they come?
It doesn't matter what order, no. But I would then vet those profiles. So I'd look at them on LinkedIn and I'd open them up and generally look at the front page and look through their first few roles to see if they were doing the right role. So if I was looking for an engineer and they were an architect or an analyst, I'd probably hold back from putting in this project. Not everybody's that thorough, and recruiters get paid for speed, right? So we get paid by a client to get a CV really quickly. So a lot of the time you'll probably get messages that are poorly directed, and that'll be part of the reason why. Yeah. Cool.
So when you guys do like searching, like LinkedIn, so
yeah,
normally when you start, so where they like actually look into those kind of details is in the
it'll just come up anywhere. It'll just come up anywhere. So if you've got Splunk listed anywhere, it could be Splunk that you've done a certification, could be Splunk, or it could be SIEM, or whatever the terminology is. If it's on your profile anywhere, you'll come up on that search. And I think for somebody who's trying to get a job, I'd put in your tagline the types of roles that you're trying to get. Because I could set a search up that looks for keyword security analyst and Splunk. And if you don't have security analyst and Splunk, you won't come up. I could do a whole session on LinkedIn search, to be honest. So how to make yourself noticed by recruiters or by internal talent people. Update your CV, update your LinkedIn. Seems simple. Put the right stuff on there, the stuff that people can find you by. Attend events. And when you come to these events, talk to people. Seems simple, right? But if you see somebody who you know of that's a recruiter, go and say hi to them. Or, if this one will sound funny. I'm actually quite an introverted person, which is weird given the job that I do, but you find ways to deal with that. So if you were coming to an event like this and you knew there was going to be 20, 30 people there, make it a goal of yours to meet 5 of them. or start with 2, you know, and ask them why they're here. What did you want to see about them? What brought you here? It's a good little lead in and soften the blow. And then the next time you go, be like, okay, I met 3 people. Let's do 5 this time. And then before you know it, you know everyone in the room. And the reason that would be important is further to my point earlier, right? So think about that from a hiring manager's perspective. So I was talking about, I will think about people who I've spoken to or who I've met who do that job. So say we met at a meetup, I get a role briefing the next day for, they're looking for somebody like you. I'm going to ring you straight away because I remember you from yesterday. You're front of mind. So same thing, if somebody in the room is hiring for that role and you've introduced yourself and you said that you want to do that, they'll probably remember talking to you and they might reach out to you. So that's the value of networking at these events and just networking in general. That's where I think you can use it to your advantage. I don't know if there's anything else that I need to highlight. I think we've spoken to that quite well. Actually, something here, right? So if you're trying to get into security, don't just put, you need to speak context about why you're trying to get into security. So I'm really interested in security because of WannaCry. My email got breached because of that. Lost my whole computer. My family lost their life savings. Whatever it was, put that in your CV. Put it on your LinkedIn. Also, if you've got a home lab, put that on there. This is what I'm working on at the moment. This is what I'm trying to learn. Because if somebody just sees a CV with no context of that, they've got no reason to call you. But if you put it on there, someone like me or HR might have a reason to ring you. So that would be some little tips that would help if you're trying to break in. But know that it's bloody hard as well. No, it's really, really hard. There's just not that many roles.
But in saying that too, the other thing is if you've got other skill sets, include them in there. Because I think too, one of the things with cybersecurity is that I think a lot of people that are starting to realize we just don't want technical people. We want other people within there. I think as an industry, we're starting to realize that we've got a whole group of people when they are profiling and finding the same cybersecurity people. We actually, like I said, if you've got other skill sets, make sure that you're, like I said, putting them down there within your LinkedIn profile because, again, cybersecurity in itself is like, right, we've realized that we need to start actually expanding our reach to capture recruiters that don't fit the profile for the people that we're hiring to capture them.
Points, do you hear that, Jack? I hope they come through. Cool. So you came up on my search. I messaged you. What do you do now? What do you do, Craig? Do you get messaged by a recruiter that's asking you if you want to roll or not?
Yeah, look, again, once you get into the industry, once you've got a good job, one of the things is you build trust with your recruiters. So I've got trust with Riki. I've probably got 5 recruiters that I deal with, and they will tell me about what jobs are going there. The other guys, I will probably ignore unless it sort of says, this is a really cool job. And then I'll go onto their website and have a look at what that role is and where it is. And if it's some cool tech, then I'm going to take the telephone call.
Yeah. So the thing I'd highlight in what you just said, you didn't at any point say you'd ask for a job spec, right?
No.
So don't do that. Like if you ask for a job spec, so I'm a recruiter, I've spent time to find you, I've sent you a message, maybe it's a good message, maybe it's a bad message, and then your response is send me the JD. I'd be like, there's probably other people that want it more than you, mate. That'd be my first thing. Also, the JD is not going to sell you the job. That's not going to be right. I would implore you to reply to every message that you get on LinkedIn. I do my best to be fair. Even so, there's an industry that maybe people in this room don't know about. There's an industry that's called recruiters. It's called rec to rec. So it's recruitment agencies that find recruiters for recruitment agencies. It's a real thing. So I get approached by recruiters about roles at other agencies. I'll always reply to them. Now, the reason I'll always reply is at one point I might want that job. I don't today, but at one point I might. Also, I send a lot of messages on LinkedIn. I want people to reply to mine. So if I don't reply to someone else's, right, not fair. But the reason I suggest to reply is if the role doesn't look right, say that. That role doesn't suit me. I would be interested in this role. And then, again, I would use my memory when the next role comes up and you could be front of mind. I think it's much better to say you're not interested than not replying as well. Because, you know, sometimes you might send somebody 5 messages in a row and you don't even know if that account's being monitored. So that would be my thing to say there. You could also do none of that. It doesn't matter, right? But I think, for me, it's always best to give respect to people one way or another. So, all right. Phishing campaign worked. Got someone on the hook. They've sent me their number. My process here, just for context, I don't know that everyone in recruitment does this. Okay, just for context, I'm really thorough. I like to work with clients repeatedly, so I make sure that the people that I send them suit the role. Okay, not every agency is going to do this, but there's some stuff here that I would suggest you look out for if an agency approaches you, that will give you an idea if they're somebody who is a good recruiter or maybe not. Right. So I'll generally call somebody and have a 10 to 15 minute phone call with them. I'll talk about the role. I'll talk about what the responsibilities are. I'll talk to you about your role, what you like, what you don't like, what you're looking for. Right. Pretty basic stuff. I will always ask what salary you are on. Now, it's uncomfortable and people don't like to share it a lot of the time. Look, for me, it's a trust thing. It's a two-way street. You got to trust me. I got to trust you. The salary that you're on doesn't dictate the salary that you get paid at all. So don't feel like that's the case.
What do you ask for again?
So good question. 2 reasons. One, I'll know how serious you are. If you say you're a 1-year person in industry and you're on $100,000 and you want to get paid $200,000, I know straight away you're not that serious. Because before you've even spoken to me, you kind of know what that role is going to be paying, right? You know what a senior engineer gets paid. You know what an architect gets paid within a range. And if somebody says that they're on a number and they ask for something that's outside of that range, I know they're not serious. That's what I'll always ask. And also it shows trust. If you can trust me, I know that I can trust you through the process, right? Again, two-way street. I've got people that have never disclosed their salary. It's also fine. I don't see why it's such a big secret, to be honest. So each to their own. There's also some companies that ask it through process, which is really uncomfortable. So just be conscious of that. Some of the banks do it. I think they even ask you to verify it. So yeah, but I always do it for that reason. Two-way trust, right? Again, I know it's kind of frowned upon, but yeah, it is what it is. I was trained 10 years ago, so it's what you do. Yeah, trust, that'd be the thing I'd highlight there. And I'd try to be comfortable. Like, try to be comfortable in those uncomfortable conversations when you're talking to agencies. And also, the thing I would say about that is trust. If you find a recruiter who's going to look after you, trust that they're going to have your best interest at heart. Like, they're going to want you to get the role at the salary that's going to work. They don't want you to get a poor salary. They want you to stay. If you stay and you're happy, the employer comes back and uses me again to hire the next person like you. So it's a long-term play, I would say, for that side. Also, if somebody's way underpaid, I can tell you that. If you don't tell me what salary you're on, how do I know? So I'll give a prime example of that. And I was going to talk about it later. I'll talk about it now. There's a candidate who I had at offer stage last year. It was an AppSec person, a couple of years of experience. I think it's about 3 years of experience. Was probably paid about 25% under market rate. Asked her what salary she wanted to get paid, and I said, look, you're probably paid unders, but we can get you the salary that you want. Got a 10% above that. Accepted the role, went through the process. And again, there's a slide that talks to this, so I'll skip through that when we get to it. Went through the whole process, signed the contract, and then a week before was meant to start, got a counter offer for like $5,000 more than what was in that contract. So got like a 40% pay rise off the back of that. I'd not suggest to do that because I think counter offers are a plague. But anyway, we talk about that after. Salary negotiation tips. We've probably kind of covered this a little bit, but I'd be honest. It sounds really funny. Like, just be honest with recruiters. Like, this is what I want to get paid. This is what I think I'm worth. You know what those roles pay, generally speaking. You've seen the ranges. Make sure you're aligned to the role as well. So use that 10 to 15 minutes chat with a recruiter to make sure the role actually suits you. Don't waste time. Like, don't window shop. If you want to get paid more money, there's probably a way to do it where you work. Like, don't waste everybody's time. And again, the reason I say honesty works is from my side, I want to make sure that I'm putting people into roles they want to take and that they're going to stay in. Because at the end of the day, I'm a reflection. Sounds funny. I'm a reflection of the person that I put in there. So if I put a good person in there, I'm seen as being good. If I put a bad person in there, then I'm also perceived as being bad. So I want to make sure that you're going to stay. All right. Next step I do. So I've got the CV, or whether it be from LinkedIn, Seek, however the source is. I've had that phone call. I've sent you the job spec and my briefing notes. And you've come back to me and said, yes, I want to talk about the role. I'll set up a 30-minute video chat by Teams. In that, we'll kind of go over what we did on the phone, but we'll also go a bit deeper. We'll talk some of the projects that you've done or some of the really interesting incidents that you've worked on if you're an analyst or similar. And then through that call, we'll make sure that the role suits you. And if it doesn't, then we end it for that and we move on till there's another role. If it does suit you, we send you forward and then the process begins with the client. Yeah. Cool. Something I'd say here, I don't know how many agencies do this anymore. I don't know. Has anyone gone through a recruitment process recently? Rick, did the agency meet you?
In person?
Yeah, or by video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did have a chatting video.
All right. I don't know how much happens anymore. So I'm really old school. I used to meet everyone in person. Used to make you come down to my office. Pre-COVID times are different now. It's much easier. Now, two things that I mentioned here. Why do we do that Teams chat? Want to make sure it suits you, right? So again, I could just trust you that the job suits you, but do you trust me just to send your CV everywhere? Of course you don't. So two-way street, right? All right. So I've met a few people. I've shortlisted them. And I'll send them forward to a client. Now, for me, I'll send a shortlist generally of 2 or 3. There's normally not more than 2 or 3 people for a role. But besides that, I normally wouldn't like to send a longer shortlist. A couple of reasons for that. I need to know I'm on the right track. So I'll send through that shortlist. I'll wait for the manager to come back to me. I won't send any more CVs until I've got feedback. Because if I'm going down the wrong path and I keep sending more people, they're going to think, I don't know what I'm doing. Also, the other reason, if you're a hiring manager, you need to know there isn't an infinite amount of people out there. If I keep sending you one every day, you're going to expect the next person the next day when that's not the case most of the time. Also, I need to know that you aren't wasting my time. So if you think backwards from that, if however long it's taken me to find that person on LinkedIn or my other searches, I've also invested for every CV about an hour of time just personally with them. I need to know that I'm not having my time wasted by somebody. Sounds a little bit direct perhaps, but that's the fact. All right. We send the CV and then we wait. Question to the floor, like how long do you reckon is realistic? If you've applied for a role or a recruiter's put you forward, what do you expect feedback with? What do you think's realistic? What would you be happy with from your side? Genuine question.
I would say a week.
A week? Wow.
I give it a week before I make contact back.
Anyone else?
My experience
A day.
A day?
Yeah, within the day.
Within a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good clients of mine, I will get the CV. Before I send it, I'll ring them. I'll be like, I'm about to send you a CV and you need to meet that person. Before I've hit send, they're like, yep, this is my schedule. And then I send them the CV and they review it. Now, not every relationship I've got is that strong. Also, lots of clients. So we recruit for one of the big banks and they have a very convoluted process for a CV to get reviewed. There's personality tests that need to be done before a manager can see a CV. So in those types of processes, it's never going to be 1 or 2 day turnaround. I'd say 48 hours is a fair turnaround. So besides those kind of HR things, there also might be 3 or 4 people that need to review your CV, and that can take time. So from your side of the desk, I'd say a week's too long. A day is sometimes realistic, but 2 to 3 days is probably what you should expect. Cool. So we sent your CV. We sent your CV. You've been requested for interview. My job's done, right? Walk out the room, send an invoice when you start. We're good. Not really. So I'll try to give as much specific info to you before you have that interview. So this is the manager. If I know them really well, I'll give insights into them. These are the types of questions they'll ask. This is what you can expect. Here's the briefing notes again. Here's the job description. Here's when you're meeting them, method, all that sort of stuff. Again, thinking back to what I said before, you doing good makes me look good. So I want you to do the best that you can. Now, I crafted my ideas around interview prep actually came from a post I read from an internal recruiter at Google. So I remember reading it was years ago, and they were saying that they sent this whole email that was like A4 size full of detail. This was an internal recruiter recruiting for Google and sending that to a person going through their process. And I was like, that's someone working internal doing that level of prep to a candidate to go into a role. If I'm working in an agency and I want to send a CV to Google, like I've got to have those types of processes to help people do well. So it's not exactly over from my perspective. So we'll do that. We'll send you go and have your interview, right? After the interview, we'll do a debrief. Call me, hey, how'd the interview go? What did you think? Right. Open chat back and forth. I'll do the same with the manager as well. And then I've said here, use me as your human shield. So there's a question that you could ask a hiring manager or a company that might not reflect well on you. You can ask that question to me. I can get that information from the manager if I don't know it in a way that doesn't make you look poorly. So use us as a resource, basically, if you're in process. Now, same process would happen for every interview. So next interviews with this guy, this is what you can expect. Same context, same debrief, right? And then we make sure that the role fits, salary, all those things. We reconfirm everything that we'd spoken about previously. All right. So you've done great. You've aced the 2 interviews or 3 interviews or whatever it was, and you got an offer. So what do we do now, right? One of the things I'd really highlight here is the second point there. If you've got a wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever it is, family, if you haven't spoken to them yet, why haven't you spoken to them? Like anytime I've been going for a role, I tell my wife before I go for an interview that I'm going for a role. If you haven't done that, I'd probably suggest you aren't that serious, right? So do that earlier in the stage, because after you do 2 or 3 interviews, you're going to get an offer if you've done well. And you probably need to think about that offer before that point. I would always advise to do one of 2 things, and potentially 3, but I'll elaborate. Either accept the role or decline. Now, if you need more information so that you can make that decision, definitely get the more information, but never go and speak to your manager where you work. If that's all that's going to happen is your manager is going to pay you more money. If you want to get paid more money, do that first. Be like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving because I'm not getting paid fairly. Recruiters are ringing me every day about a role paying $200,000. I'm getting paid half of that. It's not fair. And then if they can't do it, you know that you can move on. But I wouldn't use a process of going for another role to try to get more money. That would not be the play that I would do personally. And as evidenced by that point that I raised earlier, about that candidate that had the offer and accepted the counter offer, they would never get a role with that company again. That manager is going to go somewhere else. It's just bad blood. So suggest not to do it. Personal opinion. Counter offer, we spoke about this. I'd say never to accept one. That's a personal thing. There's all these, what I would say, rubbish statistics that exist, say 96% of people who accept the counter offer leave within the next 12 months. I don't know where those statistics come from. I would doubt the accuracy of them. If something can be fixed by getting paid more money where you currently are, try to get that before you quit. If it's only money that you want, I don't know, you probably won't stay engaged in the role that you go to either. So you've got to have that extra bit that'll keep you there. And if you do accept a counter offer, the reason you quit will still be there. Or the reason that you were going to quit will still be there. You're just getting paid more. So probably doesn't solve your problem. Unless the only problem is money, then that could be fixed. Okay, so a summary on what we kind of went over, right? So if you're a job seeker, update your LinkedIn, your CV, make all of that stuff look right. Right. If a recruiter approaches you about a role and you're interested, have a chat with them, engage with them. Like a good recruiter will be able to send you notes or context about the role. If they can't do that, they're probably not that engaged on the role for one. And then maybe not somebody that you want to work with. Use us for insights on what's happening in the market, insights on salaries, where the trends are. You know, people who, like, if I'm speaking to hundreds of people a week doing a job, I'm going to know what's going on. You can ask me. Yeah. They're probably the things that I'd highlight from that. So go through the process. Be honest. Be honest with the recruiter. Be honest with the company through the process. You've got nothing to lose by being honest. They're the things that I'd probably highlight with that. Now, why should you engage with recruiters? I think I probably just covered that, to be honest. Also, recruiters will buy you beers, coffees, lunches. Make the most of it. You might as well. But also, in a genuine sense, use us for advice. Like, we get roles that don't go on portals. There's roles that don't exist anywhere else except through a recruiter. So if you're not engaging with people like us, you might be missing out on a really good opportunity. Also, if you're a hiring manager, you could ask me about salary bandings. Is that realistic? I can give a really good example of a role I worked on where the banding was ridiculously under, like more than 20% under. They were looking for a threat hunter, and they wanted to pay 145, including super, which for anybody that's done analyst work, it's way grossly under. Had a chat with them, managed to get the budget up and place the role. So again, use us as a resource from both sides, is what I would say. And we can be a reality or a sanity check, if you will. Hey, we're trying to hire an analyst and we want to pay 75 grand. Is it realistic? No, probably not in the current market. So this is the last slide. I guess the key takeaways are use us as a resource, engage with us. The good people in the industry are your friends. I'm sure there's some bad people. Everybody's got a story about a bad recruiter. I do too, but we won't share that here. Be honest and be respectful. It's a two-way street. Like, recruiters will be respectful to you if you're respectful in return. And that's it for the slides. I think we're going to stop the recording now. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Was there anything you want to say, Rick, before that?
That should go to the. Yep. So. Sorry. Questions for the people online. If you have questions, put them on Discord or on YouTube. We'll keep an eye on them. And yep. So this is Dan. Thank you very much. And yeah, let's go offline. Thank you.